Hey, aloha. I'm here with Richard Brooke. That's with an E on Richard. And it's really nice he stopped by. Friends with Tom, Big Al Schreider. And so Richard called me up. And of course, I was a little taken aback and said, "What do you want?"
I want to be on your TV show.
So we had some fun with that, and because a lot of you know we're about Give More, Get More. We're really excited because a really great story about network marketing and about changing your life. So Richard, thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
Recently married?
Yes, recently married on Oahu, and my beautiful wife Kimmy and I are here on Kauai checking it out, doing a little house hunting. It's beautiful.
It's a beautiful spot, and we're glad you're here. So just let me tell you a little about Richard if you're not familiar with him. He was on a couple of magazine covers, Networking Times, that's important, but what's really important is Success Magazine. Everybody knows Success Magazine, the whole litany of it and everything. Actually, the first person in network marketing to be on that cover, and at that time became the biggest selling issue of that magazine.
The 100-year history of Success Magazine, which just goes to show the power of the network marketing community.
Right.
Because they gobbled that issue up worldwide, because it's the first time network marketing had ever been positively featured in a mainstream magazine. And it was actually Blake Roney and me on the cover. I was in the center. He's a little picture to the left of me.
Right.
He went on to build a $4 billion company. So just goes to
Which
show
is really great, because I think what's happened, I think the real allure of network marketing, you tell me what you think, but the real allure of network marketing is the story that's inside every story, which is the hero's journey. And a lot of times on magazine covers, you see the Oprahs or the Robert Kiyosaki's or something like that. But what's magnificent about what happened for you in the industry is that's what's nice about network marketing, is it really is a level playing field. If somebody really wants to do it, they can do it, and they don't need a big bankroll to build a big business.
Anybody can do it. You and I are great. Well, I mean, you know, it's not a joke. It's a fact. I mean, you sold fish. I cut chickens. Anybody can do this. You got $500. More importantly, you're just willing to be coached. And if what you're playing for is bigger to you than avoiding what it takes to be successful, that you're a deadlock cinch.
Right, which is fantastic. And I think that's an important part of your story, that you were working with chickens, okay? Little did you know you'd spend the next 50 years trying to get people to call their chicken list,
right?
So you still can't get away from it. But fundamentally was working with chickens and got involved in network marketing and went from sort of a level entry or just making a living to building an organization of over 30,000 active distributors, which I think is important. A lot of people have a lot of zeros in their groups. 30,000 active distributors earning over $40,000 a month. And I remember way back when work like your hair's on fire. And Mach 2, which is really nice because it seems like it's evolved into vision and self-motivation, which I'm a big fan of. And of course, the 4-year career, which you authored later, a best-selling author. But I wanted to ask you a question about this book, because I think it's important, you might not. But in reading this over, thanks for sending it to me last night. It's really fantastic. I've read it before, but it's like, when did they put this new stuff in here? But you talk about early on, you were being counseled or coached, and it was suggested that you read Think and Grow Rich, and you thought it was baloney. Tell us what that was about, and then what changed for you?
Well, you know, I think evidenced by my average D- in high school, and I never went to college. I'm not an intellectual, and I really struggled with Think and Grow Rich. You know, it's dense. You could read that book 100 times for the rest of your life. You know, it's like you say, it's not something to read, it's an exercise. And I just wasn't ready for that kind of deep dive on studying all these new concepts. And then, of course, the whole idea of lying to yourself about how confident. It just struck me weird, and so it actually took utter failure. I didn't break through. I didn't actually start applying the principles in Think and Grow Rich till I was driving a borrowed car, living in a studio apartment with no furniture.
Right.
I had to get that far down before my way, obviously, wasn't the highway.
Right.
And so that's when I started applying it.
And how was that for you in the early iterations? You started, so you surrendered a little bit. You're saying you finally surrendered to reading the book, and I know you got into affirmations and all that. But, what was that transition like? Because I know when W. Clement Stone gave me Think and Grow Rich, and he said, this is not a book, it's an exercise. This little bow tie. I'm like, whatever. I was 22, and it's like, whatever. I'm not listening to a guy with a little mustache and a bow tie. And so, luckily for me, there were several moves early in my life. Some of them with trash bags in the middle of the night, right? Some with stuff thrown out the window. But that was the one thing that I carried with me. And when I was really down and out and failing for the 6th time in network marketing, I reached for the book and started the exercise. I know what it was like for me, but when you first started that journey of self-discovery and personal responsibility, how was that for you? And what was there a major thing that shifted, or was it just sort of an entire movement within you?
Well, I've done whole days answering that question because I really believe my career is defined in about an hour. I'm 38 years full time, but everything happened in an hour.
Wow.
And so, one of the things I know you and I both teach people is you don't have to, whether it's Think and Grow Rich or whatever you're studying, you really don't have to do very much to get some traction and just do some things a little tiny bit different. So I probably had been studying and doing the principles in Think and Grow Rich for about 2 months, and an opportunity came up. But opportunities are coming by us all the time. We're like the trout in the eddy, and the food's coming by all the time. But whether or not you recognize it, so I just recognized an opportunity, and the opportunity was a customer. We all have customers. This guy bought some product, and he wanted to buy some more product, but he lived 3 hours away. I lived in Des Moines. He lived in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. It was the middle of winter. It was horrible weather. And so, one of the things I know about this work is as you start to open up your mind and as you start to develop a different way of thinking, you see an opportunity, and then what you make up about the opportunity, that's everything lies right there. So, I teach people that when you're self-motivated, you just tend to make up green lights instead of red lights. If you make up red lights, you're dead.
Right.
Make up green lights, you're going to move a little different. So this guy was 3 hours away. He wanted another bottle of product, which is $13 worth of product. So I made this up. This defines my whole career. I made up, well, if I drive 3 hours, you'll probably buy a case. You'll be impressed, right? 3 hours? That's $180. That was big money. In 1979, $180 for a guy who's driving a borrowed car, that was big money.
Big money.
So I also made up, well, if I get there around noon, 3 hour drive through an ice storm, he'll probably buy me lunch. And I made up, if I have him for an hour, somewhere in that hour, the opportunity is going to come up. It's got to. So I drove to Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I got there about 11:30, and he says, "I can't believe you drove 3 hours through an ice storm." I said, "It's no problem." He says, "You want to have lunch?" I said, "Sure." And so we had lunch at the Village Inn right there on the river, and halfway through lunch, he says, "Is there any money in this?" And I said a couple of things in the next 2 or 3 minutes that define it all. I looked him right in the eye, and I said, "It'll blow your mind." I don't think I could have said it that way 2 months earlier. I'd be so embedded in, I'm so frustrated. I'm so embarrassed. I'm such a loser. I'm driving a broke car. This doesn't work for me very well. I just had a little bit different confidence because I was doing the exercises. I said, blow your mind.
Right.
He said, well, show me. So I showed him, forward, get forward, get forward, get forward, get forward. Everybody's,
Right.
And he said to me, in a way, Mark, that nobody had ever said this. He said, I can do that. He looked at the yellow pad,
Right.
and he said, I can do that. And I said to myself, you can. Wow. So then he says, well, what do I do next? And each one of these, I mean, you can probably see if I hadn't gone to Cedar Rapids, if I hadn't planned for lunch, if I hadn't said it'll blow your mind, if I'd have said, well, I'm kind of, you can make some money. I know some people, but, he might have not said I can do that.
Right.
But then he said, what do I do? I said, well, this was on a Thursday. I said, there's a big regional on Saturday. The president of the company is going to be there. And I didn't say, oh, boy, sure would be nice if you could make it. And I know it's a 5-hour drive. You can't fly from Cedar Rapids to Kansas City. And I just said this. I said, you got to be there with people. And I've talked to people for hours about just the with people. Just those two words might make or break my entire career. He had 2 people at the event.
Right.
And one of them went on to build this humongous organization in states that I never went to and worked.
Right.
So, it doesn't take very much work to change the interpretations about opportunity. You see a name on a names list. So I'm going to call Mark and Vaughn and say, hey, maybe tell them about my opportunity. Oh, no, they wouldn't be. That's a red light. Well, if you say to yourself, oh, no, they would, or they're too busy, or I don't know what to, you're not going to call them.
Right.
But if you just happen to make up, this could work.
Right.
You're going to call them.
Right.
So it doesn't take very much personal growth, personal exercises, building that confidence to turn those red lights to green lights. And then now you get traction. Now you get success. And, this one guy, his name's Jerry Schaub. He made me $100,000 in the next 12 months.
It was worth the trip.
Yeah.
It was worth the ride. It was worth the story. I love that metaphor of red light and green light. One of the things that we like to talk about is, people have a lot of different words for fear, or but the one that I love the best, I picked up out of the Aladdin Factory years ago, with the Canfield and Hanson boys, and that is fantasized experiences appearing real.
Right.
And what's wrong with fantasizing a positive experience? Because there really isn't any difference between positive and negative. It's just what you're going to do with it. They're not opposites. They're really on the same dynamic, and you're just going to decide where you're going to place your story.
Just like fear and excitement. It's the same energy in the body. You just have a different label.
Exact same chemical pours out of it, and I just think that's a great metaphor. So that kind of dovetails into this second thing that I know when we were having some tuna with your beautiful bride.
Yes, right.
Kim.
Yeah,
Right. Kimmy. Okay. I said, I'm stealing this thing. And you said, go ahead. I didn't do it. But we hope vaguely, but we dread precisely.
For sure.
I think in this particular chapter, which you call visions, you couldn't have picked a better one, or your editor couldn't have picked a better one. It's fantastic. Can you talk about that a little bit? What happens? Because the way Dave and I look at it is the way that Dave and I teach, which is, I think we're just using different vocabulary to say the same thing, is that as long as you're attached to the past or the future, you can't be in the present, which is where the real future is invented. And I think that statement really helps someone zero in on what they're doing at that particular moment, because that's where it happens. That's how we feel. How do you feel? Does that apply for you there? That the imagining of something negative or positive is vague when it's positive. How does that work for you?
I mean, that's an old quote, that's hundreds of years old, I think. But it speaks to the condition of our culture, where we empower each other just culturally to, okay, something bad happened to you, and then let's rehash it 1,000 times over the next 20 years. I mean, it becomes a bedtime story, and you have it memorized. It's like Mary had a little lamb, and they all died. You know, it's just negative, and we're just in the habit culturally for really thousands of years of focusing on the negative things that happened in our lives and rehearsing them over and over and over again.
Right.
And you know, as you know, Think and Grow Rich, the subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between a real experience and one vividly imagined. So, you know, if your little lamb died when you were 7, but you keep thinking about it over and over again, it's like your little lamb died every 30 minutes for the next 20 years.
Right. The problem with rehearsing a story that way, as you're talking about, Dave likes to say, you know, the problem with having a story is you have to live up to it.
Right.
And if you say it out loud, your subconscious mind has no defense against your voice, so it believes it.
Absolutely. And so you know, I know the work that you're doing by creating a university of people that are learning the answer to the secret. You know, we were talking over lunch. You know, the secret. What a beautiful film for an hour about. Hey, there's a secret. And well, what's the answer? What is the secret? You guys are teaching that in the university, and you know, it's as simple as teaching people to master how to think, how to think in such a way so that, you know, whatever it is we want that's a worthy ideal, we have the thought skills to manifest it, which is both attracting and also acting.
Right.
And so you're doing beautiful work there, but there's not very many people in the last couple hundred years in our world that have been doing that work. Most people have just been practicing how to worry.
Yeah,
and
I love that. Just making overheads. You know, this is the great thing about getting together with people like Richard, and do it whenever you can, folks. Because if I give Richard $10 and he gives me $10, nothing really changes. But just the sharing of ideas and some ideas that Kim had, this is Kimmy. Thank you. How did two guys end up with two beautiful women?
We're network marketers, man.
Or there is a God, probably both. Right? But basically, you know, the idea of getting a clear mental picture of what you want and living in that spot, but paying attention in the moment. Totally. And that's what I got a lot of what you were talking about outside, is that it's about the now. It's about what can I do now?
Right.
Like the ride to Des Moines?
Yeah, Cedar Rapids. Des Moines to Cedar Rapids.
Des Moines to Cedar Rapids. All right, so we'll go to one more section here that I thought was really interesting. And this one's from my wife, the fabulous Davine, who, let's leave the Bible out of it, okay, so there's no debate, but she says the greatest book ever written is the dictionary. And I've come to believe that she's right about that. Because,
I've never heard that.
Well, we're so vague with words. And I think it's brilliant in here because in the art of deciding, in this particular chapter, you took the time to put the definition in it. Our point has always been people don't know the difference between stating a preference and making a decision. And I just found this chapter phenomenal.
I did add that, by the way, about 2 years ago.
You did?
Yeah.
So I love that you have that in there. Tell me about decision, stating a preference, and what you try to do to help people that are stating preferences but think they're making a decision. Is there anything that you can do for them?
Yeah, I mean, it's so, it's, again, part of our culture. We're just enabled to do this our whole lives. We're enabled to make a promise and, you know, give someone our word, whether it's, you know, I'll be at the coffee shop at 7 o'clock, or I'll be on the webinar, or I'm actually going to build this business, or, you know, I'll mow your lawn next week, whatever it is. Culturally, we're just enabled in this society to change our minds about keeping our word. And so what's valuable as a leader in building a network is to listen for when is somebody, you know, you may call it a preference. I call it a decision of convenience. So you said you're going to show up at the meeting Tuesday night at 7:00. Well, yeah, this is Saturday, and in the moment that you're talking to me about the event, it sounds like a good idea to show up Tuesday night at 7. But the problem is Tuesday evening at 5. It doesn't sound like a good idea anymore. There's a million things that happen between Saturday and Tuesday. One of them might be the cold beer that's in front of me and my favorite TV show. It just doesn't seem like a good idea. So culturally, we're just all in the habit, and we enable each other to make these kinds of decisions, which they just don't have any substance. They don't have any integrity. And most importantly, for ourselves, they don't have any power. What has power is making a promise to yourself and then keeping your word. So what is your integrity with your word? What is your relationship with your word? What does it mean when you make a declaration, when you decide, I'm going to do something? What does that mean? To most people, it doesn't mean anything. It means in the moment that we're talking about it, I decide I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do your university. I'm going to do your program. But, a week later when you actually tell me what I'm going to have to do it, I don't want to do that.
The Red Sox and Yankees are playing.
Right.
And that seems like a better idea.
Exactly.
And one of the things that we gleaned out of Hanel, which is the sort of the lineage into Think and Grow Rich, was that, and we're adamant about this with our business partners when we were doing network marketing, and now with what we're doing these days and trying to actually, and you can tell everybody, okay, the secret is there isn't any secret. Okay, it's everything you need is right here. You just have to master the gifts you were given. And as W. Clement Stone said, get the cobwebs off, right? Yeah. And being around a guy like Richard will get the cobwebs off pretty quickly. No BS. But basically, he says, don't start anything unless you're going to finish it. And we start them off with an index card that says, I promise to take the trash out. Some chore that they can do by themselves that doesn't take any friends, any heavy lifting or anything. Yeah. And down at the bottom they sign, I always keep my promises.
Beautiful.
And they read it and they get it done before that week. And then the next week they add another one and another one because the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference. And over the course of 26 weeks, we just raise the ante a little bit because the habit of keeping the word. I just love what you said about that. It is a cultural problem.
It is. It's but that exercise is beautiful. You're taking an atrophied muscle, and it's weak. And so about the most I can maybe do is take out the trash because I can't ask anybody to help me. And so you work that muscle, and then you add on to it over. That's beautiful exercise. That really.
Well, then we use what you talked about, the subconscious not knowing, and we tell them when you take that trash out, right? And you put it, remember that you thought it, you wrote it, you read it, you promised it, and you kept your promise. Celebrate like you won the Super Bowl because your mind, with pain that you experience in life, you can remember when you were hurt, but it doesn't hurt like it did. But the joy of anything, you can literally close your eyes and get there, and if you'll breathe in and feel that victory, there's nothing to establish a habit faster than releasing dopamine, which isn't just for pleasure anymore, to establish that habit of keeping your word.
Right.
And it's really nice to meet a guy like you who kept his word, and we're going to keep our word and wrap this up. So we got a couple of quick, because we know you got to go have some fun with your bride.
Yeah.
But basically, we got a few questions for you. Just 1-2 word answers, whatever. Your favorite sound or noise?
Ocean waves.
Nice. And your least favorite sound or noise?
Horns, car horns.
They don't pull them over here.
I noticed it. I haven't heard one.
Which is great.
Car horn.
Your favorite word? What word do you love most?
Fun.
And your least favorite word?
Hate.
Interesting. What occupation, other than a 38-year lifer in network marketing, would interest you or would you like to try?
2. Out of high school, I wanted to be a forest ranger, but they said, you flunked out of high school and you're not going to college. You're not going to be a forest ranger. I would have loved to have been a forest ranger as a kid because I grew up on a ranch. But as an adult, if I ever did something just to satisfy that itch, I'd do real estate. I love real estate.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I need to tell you, after meeting with this guy and having lunch with him and everything, I think he could have built a network marketing organization in a forest ranger station. Just a magnet, okay? And what occupation would you really never want to try?
I wouldn't want to be a medical doctor.
Yeah. I admire them, but
No, that's deeply steeped in the inevitability of too much helpless sadness.
Yeah, powerlessness.
Yeah.
Yeah. What turned you on?
Kimmy turns me on. Adventure turns me on. Contribution turns me on. Watching people turn on, like doing the work that you do, watching people get it, watching people shift their whole life, watching people walk out of an exercise, never the same. Right? That turns me on.
What turned you off?
Narcissistic, dramatic people.
I'm sorry, I was thinking about myself. Because we do this with everybody, so you can get to know them. You compare this to the. We actually did this recently with it. He calls himself a recovering attorney that has now found a home in network marketing. Your favorite cuss word?
Oh, I can't say that on video.
Okay.
Don't worry, we're going to beep it out.
Well, yeah, I do love it in the right company.
Okay. And if heaven exists, what would you like to hear your maker say when you get there?
I watched and acknowledged your defiance your entire life, and I honor and accept you in spite of it.
Richard, thank you for spending so much time
Thank
with
you,
us
Mark.
and your time over here. Great book. Get your hands on it. Simple, clear, direct, and that new one, The 4-Year Career. That is a big thing. So check it out, and peace be the journey, and enjoy the rest of your time with your beautiful wife here.
Thank you. This is a beautiful place. We're looking at the ocean right there.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. It's great.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.